Hello, I'm Helen Bradley. Welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you a really awesome halftone vector rose effect, which is all sourced from a photo. Before we get started with this video tutorial, let's have a look and see what it is that we're trying to achieve. I've got an image here, and this is what we're going to create. We're going to take a photograph of a rose, and we're going to convert it into this piece of vector art. The vectors in the image are not only the rose itself, but there's also a set of half-tone dots over the top of it, and you're going to see how to create that effect. So to get started, let's create a brand new image. I'm going to choose File and then New, and I'm going to create a document 1000 by 1000 points in size, and it's an RGB color mode. I'll click OK. I'm going to size the window down so I can see everything a little more clearly, and Control or Command 0 will center the artboard inside the window. Now I'm going to start by creating a background for my image, and I'm going to do that by making a rectangle the size of the artboard, and I can do that using the rectangle tool, or I have a script that does it for me automatically because I just find it handy to use. If you're interested in scripting in Illustrator, have a look at my video on Illustrator scripting, and it shows you how to find and download and use scripts in Illustrator just like the one I just used. Now I'm selecting my new path, and I have my fill selected. I'm just going to add a fill color to it. I'm going to double click here and call this layer background. So there is our background. I'm going to add another couple of layers for good measure for now, but let's also go and open our rose image. So I'm going to choose File and then Open. I have the image pre-prepared here as a high contrast image. Now, to save time in the video for people who are just interested in the Illustrator end of it, I'm going to just grab this image right now and use it. However, if you're not sure how to get this effect, at the end of the video I'm going to take the original rose, which has a dark background around it. I'm going to show you how to get rid of the background and make a high contrast version for it. And we're going to do that in Photoshop, but as I said, that's going to be at the end of the video. Here is the image inside its own document, so I'm just going to target this image and choose Edit and then Copy. And then because I don't want this JPEG or PNG image any longer, I'm just going to close it down. But I do want it now in on top of my background, so I'm going to target one of these layers and choose Edit and then Paste. And that pastes the bitmap image, the bitmap rose, into my Illustrator document. Now it's a little bit big for the size of the window I'm working in, so I'm going to select it, and up here on the tool options bar I'm just going to click in the width or height. Just make sure that they're locked so that they're going to be constrained to the same proportions. And I'm just going to hold the Shift key as I press the down arrow key, because that will just size this image down. And all I want is for it to fit neatly inside the area that we're working in. So that's pretty good for now. Now this layer is going to be my vector rose, so I'm just going to call it vector rose. And I'm going to duplicate the layer because I also want to create a halftone rose. So I'm just going to double click here and call this halftone. It's important that the halftone is above the vector. And layer 3, well, I'm just going to add a duplicate of my image up in layer 3. I'm going to lock it and hide it because I just want that as a reference layer. That's just going to show me what the image looked like before we started this entire process. So now I'm going to turn off my halftone layer, and I'm only going to focus on this vector rose layer. So I've got the vector rose layer selected, and I'm clicking on my image because this we're now going to convert into a vector. I can turn my background off now too, just because this might make it a little bit easier for you to see how this is all going to work. So with my bitmap image selected in the vector rose layer, I'm going up here because when I have a bitmap selected, on the menu bar here or the tool options bar is an image trace option. Now if it's not there, go into Object, Image Trace, and just click Make. And you look at this and think, oh, okay, well, what's happening here? Well, what's happening here is not exactly what we want, but we're sort of halfway there. What Illustrator does is it traces the image, but it does it as a black and white trace, and we want color. So I'm going to go up here and click on the image trace panel because this has all the settings that I need to trace the image properly. The problem is every single time I make an adjustment to any of these settings, it goes and starts tracing all over again. So I'm going to turn my preview off because I don't want it to go ahead until I'm ready. For the mode, I want color, so I'm going to click here in color, and then I can choose the number of colors. Now 30 is way too high for this effect. In fact, for this effect, we probably want something like 5 because we're going to get white, and that will give us 4 other colors, white and 4 colors. That's pretty good. Now the parse, corners, and noise settings are all in this advanced area, so if you're not seeing them, just open the advanced panel. And if you hold your mouse over them, they tell you what they do. So what's going to happen here is if I do a high path fitting, I'm going to get more detail in my image. So I want a reasonable amount of detail, so I'm going to take that up to 65. For corner emphasis, a higher value means more corners. Again, a bit of a better scan, and for this one, probably around 76. And noise reduces noise by ignoring areas of a specified pixel size. The higher value means less noise. Now a high value here is actually going to make bigger areas in my image, and I actually want that. So unusually, normally I would take noise down quite low for these other settings, but for today I'm going to make my noise value quite high. Ignoring white is going to kill me here because the tracing is actually going to end up with some white inside the image, and if I ignore white I'm going to lose those shapes, which is why I've built in 5 colors, because I'm counting on 4 plus white, and I'm not going to select ignore white. So everything now is set for me. So now if I click preview, Illustrator is going to go ahead and trace with the settings that I've specified. Okay, and here is my trace. So as you can see, I've got some white areas in the flower, but that's fine because I asked for them, and we've got 4 other colors. So let's have a look here in this image trace. Right now it is just a traced image. It's not even a vector object. To make it a vector object, we click expand. And then it becomes a group of objects, and because I want to pull white background out of here, I'm going to choose object ungroup, and I would do that until ungroup is no longer available. In fact, I only have to do it once. Now I'm going to click outside this shape, and then I'm going to click just on this white area, and as you can see, what's happened is that this white background is now selected, and I'm just going to press delete to remove it. And that now is going to give me a rose that is going to be transparent around the edges, so when I turn my background on, you can see that the background is showing through. If I had ignored white, I would have blue bits in the middle of my image, and that wouldn't be what I want. So this is now my vector rose. So it's been traced and it's a vector object. So next thing up is we have to go and create our halftone rows. So I'm going to turn the vector rows off and the background because they're already done, and we're going to focus on the halftone effect. Now the halftone effect is going to be a whole lot better if we're working with a black and white image or a grayscale image. So I'm going to select my image here and go to edit, edit colors, convert to grayscale, and this will convert this image into a grayscale image, and here it is here now. And this means I can create a black and white halftone from this. I've got my image trace panel still visible, so let's just turn that off. So with my image selected, I'm now going to create my halftone, and I do that by choosing effect, and then we're going down here to pixelate and color halftone. The maximum radius is the size of the halftone image. So if I put in 25, which is exactly what I don't want, let's have a look and see what we get. Well, we get really, really big dots, and so that's not what we want. But look here in the appearance panel, which we can get to by choosing window and then appearance. You'll see that there is a color halftone option here, so I can get back to my color halftone setting by just clicking on it. And I obviously don't want such a big number. I'm going to try 7 and click OK. This is a much better effect. You can see big black dots where the darker areas were in the image and smaller dots where the lighter areas were. But if I turn back on my vector rows and my background, the problem is that the halftone effect is blocking out the image underneath, so we're not seeing the vector rows through it. Well, with the halftone effect still selected, let's go into the appearance panel and click on opacity, because here we can set a blending effect, so we can blend this white and black halftone into the image underneath. And the easiest way to do that is to choose multiply, because that makes white effectively disappear and the black shows through. Now this is a really good effect. I really like this effect, but I think we can do better. And my issue with this is that the halftone dots are over even the light areas in the image, and I want to remove them from that. So let's go back and let's turn off our halftone effect right now. Let's go back to our rows. And I'm going to click on the rows layer. I'm just going to add a layer in here because I want to start pulling out a few of these pieces of the rows that I want to use for a mask. So to start off with, I'm going to the vector rows layer and I'm going to take my select tool and I'm going to click on this white bit. And I want to select every other white area. Well, I can do that by choosing select, same, fill color. And that selects all the white areas in the rows. I'm going to choose edit copy to copy them to the clipboard, go to my new layer and choose edit paste in place. Now it's critical that you use paste in place for this, otherwise the pieces of the rows are going to go west and then nothing's going to line up. So now let's go back to our vector rows and let's take the second lightest color. That's this color here. I'm going to select it and then again choose select, same, fill color. And this has selected all the lighter areas, the sort of second lightest areas in the rows. Edit copy. Click on my layer, that's where we're building up our mask, and choose edit, paste in place. Okay, so let's turn off our vector rows for now and let's go to this layer. Now on this layer is all the light and all the next lightest areas of the rows. So I want to select all of these pieces and I want to fill them with black because I'm going to make a mask out of them. So I'm going to my swatches panel. I'm going to find the black color. So I'm just going to click on black and that will fill these with black. And this is my mask. So I'm going to select it or leave it all selected and choose edit copy, and that copies it to the clipboard. Now I can turn my mask layer off and let's turn my halftone layer back on and let's select the halftone because this is what we want to mask. We want to hide the dots where the lighter areas of the image are. So with my halftone image selected, I'm going to click again up here in opacity. This is the one we chose earlier and changed it to multiply. Well, we're going to click it again, this time to add a mask. And here is the mask area. I'm going to click make mask. And then I'm going to make sure that the mask area here is targeted, and I'm going to choose edit paste in place. Because what that does is it pastes the mask into this area, and that's the mask that I just brought in with me. Now I'm working with the mask right now, so let's go back to the opacity area here and let's just check to make sure that we're getting the right result. Well, I'm going to uncheck clip because clip was just hiding my halftone in the areas where the mask wasn't. Well, that's not serving me at all because I want to see the halftone. I was selecting the areas where I wanted to block it out, not make a clipping mask from it. So I'm going to set clip off and I'm just going to check invert mask. Well, invert mask brings back the dots in these areas that I had masked out. If I click invert mask off, then I'm not seeing nearly so much of the masking detail in that area. So that's what I want. Now I have to be careful that before I leave this panel, I click on the image itself, because if I don't do that, I'm not going to be able to see the rest of my image back in Illustrator, because you can see here that the layers panel is only showing me the opacity mask. So I'm going to click here to go back to the image, and then click here in the panel to just hide all of that away. And when I do, my layers palette is reinstated. Now I don't want this layer because that was just the mask that I was building up, so I can trash that layer entirely. And now I can click on my vector rows, because that's going to add my rows in behind my halftone. And now you can see that the halftone dots are much lighter in the areas where the image was much lighter, because we've masked them out. Now that's essentially the effect, but if we wanted to go a step further, we could actually change the colors in the rows very easily. I'm going to click on the rows here to select it, and I'm going to my swatches panel, and in the bottom of the swatches panel I'm going to click on new color group and click OK, because I want to build it from the selected artwork. And now with the rows still selected, let's click Edit or Apply Color Group. And that opens this dialog where we can then start working with the colors. And I'm going to click Edit. And here are the colors in my rows. And I can make this rows any color I like by just dragging around on this slider. And the colors are all being maintained in the correct proportion to each other because they're locked. If I wanted to, I can unlock them, and that would allow me to individually work on the colors. Now that's going to be important for this effect right now, because I want to select this color here and I want to darken it, but I don't want to darken the other colors, and if I hadn't unlocked them, this brightness slider would have affected all the other colors. So I've just darkened the darkest areas of the image, and now I can take these orangey color areas and I can make them more orange, for example, if I wanted to, and perhaps darken them a little bit, back off their saturation. I can adjust them independently of each other, and then they're the lighter pinks in the image, which I can do something with as well. And then I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to save the changes to my color group. And now I have a different version of my rows, but there basically is the effect that we came here to create. So if you're only interested in the Illustrator portion of this tutorial, this is where you should stop. If you want to know how I created the rows and prepped that for this effect, then stay with us, and we're going to Photoshop. This is the rose image in Photoshop, and to get rid of the background, I'm first of all going to select the quick selection tool. It's the quickest way of achieving this result, and because it's easier to do so, I'm just dragging over the flower here, so making sure that my cursor stays within the edges of the flower, because I want to make sure that my selection only goes around the flower. Now I've added a bit of a flower behind here, so I'm just holding the Alt key as I drag over these areas to remove them from the selection. So I want to select the background. To do that, I'll choose Select Inverse, and that inverts my selection. So instead of the rose being selected, now the background is selected, and I'm going to press Delete, and I want to fill it with white, and I'll click OK. The next thing I'm going to do is just crop this image, because when I take it into Illustrator, I don't want any excess image, or I don't want too much excess image around it, because it is a bitmap and that is a fairly sizable image. So I'm just going to crop it carefully. And then to create a high contrast version, I'm going to choose Image Adjustments, and I'm going to use Curves. And here I'm going to start bringing in my curve here to darken the darkest areas of the image. I'm going to drag down a little bit on the bottom of the curve here to darken the dark areas, and drag up on the lighter areas to lighten them, because I'm looking for some high contrast, because these are going to be the areas that an Illustrator pulls out when it does the trace, because I want some lights and some darks. So if I'm happy with that, I'll just click OK. And if I want some additional contrast, I'll choose Image Adjustments and then Brightness Contrast, and I wind my contrast up fairly high, in fact probably all the way up. So once I'm happy with that, I'll just save it as a JPEG or a PNG file. It doesn't really matter what I save it as. So it's now ready to be opened inside Illustrator to create the vector rows and the halftone effect from. I'm Helen Bradley. Thank you for joining me for this video tutorial. Look out for more of my video tutorials here on my YouTube channel. And consider subscribing to my channel and you'll be alerted when new videos are released. And visit my website at projectwoman.com where you'll find more tips, tricks and tutorials on a range of applications including Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator and a whole lot more.